2021 marks 25 years of the Renault Mégane, and there have been many models of Mégane throughout the years. You obviously had the hatchback, you've had the estate, you've had the coupe, the roadster, the more popular Renault Mégane Scenic. Where have those all gone? They used to be everywhere. You've had a hot hatch version called the RS, maybe not in Mark 1 guys, but just in general in the Mégane line. You've also had a rally version of the Mégane called the Maxi Mégane. But today we're going to be looking at this, the Renault Mégane Classic. That's saloon to you and me. Welcome viewers to the very first review on this channel. We've done walkarounds of cars in the past, we've done show reports, we've done vehicle repair videos, but we've never actually done a full-on review. And as today, the 15th of May, marks 1 full year of car-based content on this channel, I thought I'd do a review just to celebrate that. So today's car for review, we've got a 1999 Renault Mégane Classic 1.6e RN Liberté edition. It's a very long name, I'll admit. The Liberté edition was done towards the end of the Renault Mégane Mark 1 Phase 1 at least line, because in April 1999 the Phase 2 came in with slightly more rounded front and things like that. This is quite a late car, it's a January 1999 car. So yeah, the Liberté edition was done just to celebrate sort of the end of that run. The RN is the base model of the Mégane Classic range, but even so you still got body colour bumpers, which was reasonably unusual at the time. But compared to higher up models, you didn't get things like alloys and fog lights and a couple of other niceties, such as a sunroof. Let's discuss the styling for a minute on this car, shall we? Obviously, Mégane Classic. Why is it called the Classic? Well, it was a bit of an ode to cars of an era bygone at this point. Basically, the saloon was, even in the late 90s, it wasn't as such dying out, but they were getting less common here and there and everywhere. So it was sort of a celebration of the classic saloon. So hence the name Renault Mégane Classic. This car has been designed with obviously the classic idea in mind. Obviously, the front end of it was designed to look a little bit like its Laguna sibling in the Renault lineup of the time. But this little design element here, known as the bird beak front, according to Renault, also known as the shark nose, depending where you may be from in the world, this element of design was taken from a 1960s Renault 16. So again, filling in with that idea of classicness. Going around the side, obviously the wheels, very typical for the era. Very small compared to what you'd see now with cars having 17-inch, 18-inch rims as standard. Those are not the original rims on this car because they were stolen at the place where my dad works, because he had this car before I did. So yeah, those are not original, but they're as close to as I could find at the time. The brakes behind those on the front, they are 238mm disc brakes. Coming down the side here, you've got this as standard, little body, well, door protector for car park dings and things like that. Obviously we'll ignore the rust for a minute, we'll discuss that a little bit later. On the back you've got 200mm drums, so perfectly safe for this kind of car. It's not a particularly heavy car as cars in the 90s generally aren't. But yeah, perfectly safe for the application of this vehicle, which at the end of the day, it's a family car. Obviously a little motif just on here just to tell you exactly what the car is, which is rather nice. Nice little detail by Renault there. The rear lights, they're a little bit different. You don't usually see cars with sort of blacked out tinted rear lights as standard, but this is how it came from the factory. These are updated for the Phase 2 with sort of brighter little lights going around. So arguably they're a bit safer, but I think in terms of looks wise, these look nicer. That's my opinion. You can have your own. But yeah, you can obviously see the classic styling sort of fitting in, especially from this angle and things like that. So yeah, it definitely fits well with its name of Renault Mégane Classic. And if we just have a look over here at the side profile of it, you get the full picture, and I think that is absolutely wonderful. With the bonnet up, you can see just how much space you've got to work with when you want to do your own repairs to the car. And you can see there is rather a lot. Cars today tend to cram everything into a rather small area, and of course with safety measures obviously increasing through the years, they're required to have more things such as obviously electronic sensors and cameras and little things on them to help get them to be more and more safe each year. But under here, this is just sort of bare bones single point injection at the rear, somewhere just down there, obviously injectors. But yeah, everything is easily accessible. You've got your air filter just located inside the box, you've got your coolant just inside there, you've got your oil filter just down there, dipstick, lovely in yellow, rather obvious there. You've obviously got your little washer bottle just located in the wing. That is your ECU, I believe. Obviously fan belts just there. And your timing belt cover is all underneath there. Coils, spark plugs. What more could you want? It's all very, very easily accessible. And of course, a big fan. Spinny, spinny. Lovely jubbly. But yeah, there's loads of space. Also, just so you know, if you're looking to get one of these, you've got the little pollen filter, cabin filter just inside there. So again, that is quite easy to access as well. It's certainly been designed well underneath the bonnet of the Renault Mégane. As you can see, inside the interior of it, there's actually quite a lot of space. You've got a little storage point just up here, you've got storage in here which is quite full at the minute. Got a little storage point just down here. Inside the glove box, loads of room, and of course you've got two fairly large door pockets. Obviously one on the passenger side, one on the driver's. And even, there's a bit of a storage point just underneath in there, which, you know, let's put it this way, you're not short of space in here, but in terms of things, everything's rather central. You've got your speedo directly in front of you, which is rather nice, and you can see that rather well through the steering wheel. The gauges are very simple. You've obviously got your fuel gauge there and temperature, and for some reason, instead of a rev counter, you've got a clock in the RN. No idea why. Interesting choice by Renault, but there we go. Moving on from the dash binnacles, we've got over here wiper stalk. Obviously no rear wiper on this, it's a saloon. You've got volume stalk for the radio, and you've got your indicator, horn and light all on this one just over here, which is rather useful because it's all kept to hand. Down here you've obviously got your hazard light switch, which is rather big, which is obviously a good thing because you need to locate that quickly if you're in a tricky situation. This little blanking plate here would be for your door locks if you can't have full-on door locking capabilities, which this one doesn't. This one locks each door individually. Down here you've got your rear screen heater. That plate, I honestly have no idea what that one's for. I'm sure somebody in the comments could let me know if they've got it on their car, if they have one. Moving on to the radio. This is an aftermarket unit because the original one is rubbish, basically. Once you get to a certain volume, and not a particularly loud volume either, it sounds like you're Bane in Gotham Stadium in The Dark Knight Rises, which is obviously not the best thing. I will break you, Batman, for example. Down here then, you've obviously got your heating system controls, so you've got hot and cold and yes and your no. You've got obviously your directional controls for it, and obviously you've got your fan speed and things like that, which is rather useful. But you've got quite a rare option down here. You've got an AC button for your air conditioning. That was an optional extra on these things. It cost about £600 when it was brand new, but because of that cost, which was still quite expensive in the late 90s, not many people went for it. So there we go, quite a rare option on these cars. Down here you've got the traditional cigarette lighter, rather nice, and an ashtray which is used as a money holder because I don't smoke. But yeah, that's the front. Let's go and have a look in the back of the car. Getting into the back of the Renault Mégane Classic is easy. The doors are nice and wide and they open nice and wide as well, which is an extra benefit. These are actually the same doors that you have on the Mégane hatchback as well, so bear that in mind if you're looking for one of those. In terms of rear legroom, you actually get quite a lot. This seat is in my driving position. I'm 6'1", and yeah, I've actually got quite a lot of legroom with here and feet room as well. I've also got quite a reasonable amount of headroom, despite the fact that it does slope back a little bit towards the back, being a saloon. In terms of the seat comfort, it's very nice in the back here. It's like sitting inside a lounge. Most seats these days in cars are rather hard, whereas these, soft and squishy, which is rather good for long motorway journeys. Trust me, I've been on enough of them in the back of this car throughout the years. In terms of the rear seats folding down, things like that, no 60/40 split fold rear seat in the back here. This is just all one big bench that folds forward, so if you want to get anything in the boot that's a bit too long, You have to fold the rear seat down, so no rear passengers for you. However, it does sort of act a bit more like a pickup that way. In terms of the rear seats, then you can get 5 people in here, which is rather useful. And of course, no headrests as standard, so yeah, I mean, I haven't needed to use them throughout my childhood and teenage years, so I'm not going to complain too much about it. In terms of this, you've obviously got a grab handle up here for when the driver feels a little bit too enthusiastic, which, let's face it, it's not going to happen often. It's a family car, but they're there if you ever need to. But in terms of actually getting out, if you want to use them to help you get out, lift a leg, whatever, it's rather useful. Let's go and have a look at the boot. Alright then, the boot, probably the standout feature of the Mégane Classic because it is absolutely massive. This is a 510 litre boot space. Obviously it's not very tall being a saloon, but it is rather deep, so you can get quite a lot of stuff in there. Obviously when you fold the rear seats down, you get a little bit more room, probably double the amount of room I'd say, and of course you get the extra height as well when you're inside the cab. So Renault have actually designed this rather well. Obviously you can get to the rear lights rather easily through these little things just here. You've obviously got some located just there for the stuff actually in the boot lid as well. In terms of interesting features though, you've got this little strap here which I use for my fire extinguisher, extra water and stuff like that. Survival. First aid kit, but obviously this isn't the only bit of storage you get in here, because underneath here you actually get an extra bit of storage and of course a full-size spare wheel. Can't say you see many of those in a car these days, can you really? Most of them are space savers and or a little tyre repair kit, foam kit, whatever. Either way, you get quite a lot of room. What makes it even better is the fact that when you have this open, you've actually got a little red hook up there which you can put the little cord for the floor of it into to hold it up, so you've actually got enough room to get your spare wheel out when you need to, or anything out of here. And obviously when that's not being used for the floor of the boot, you can obviously hang a shopping bag off it if you really needed to. And of course you have a little boot light as well, which obviously isn't doing much today given it's quite bright, but when it's dark it's rather useful. Whilst we're around here at the boot of the car talking about the practicality side of it, we've already established the boot is rather large. It was, I believe, one of the largest in class when it was brand new. But if that's not enough for you, you can also get a roof box for it. I believe it can hold up to 75 kilograms. And obviously, as we got down here, you can get a tow bar for it, towing a 575 kilogram trailer load unbraked. Or if you've got a brake trailer, it can tow up to 1,300 kilos. That's rather useful. Objectively, no car is perfect. Every single one of them will have a problem that is unique to that model of car, and the Renault Mégane Classic is no different. If we have a look at it, the rear lights, apparently with these, I've never suffered this problem with this car before, but apparently quite a common problem with them is for the electrics for the rear lights to not work. Not quite sure why, but yeah, that's a problem. Another problem underneath here are actually the coil packs. They don't seem to be that strong. I've had 3 of those go, all within quite a short space of time. So either it's just a case of they're really not strong, or I've had faulty ones, but yeah, either way, not great. But also, if you have a look at the rocker cover gasket on this, that seems to have let go a bit, and a bit of oil is weeping out of there. It's not too bad, but it's still something just to watch out for. As well as those couple of little issues, obviously the elephant in the room, we have to address it, don't we? The rusty rear arches. Unfortunately, because of the design, it is a bit of a moisture trap in behind the outer skin of the car and the inner skin, so this happens. Luckily you can get repair panels for this and get it welded in, but either way it doesn't look that pretty, but it can be repaired at least. But those are sort of your main problems with the Renault Mégane Classic. There's actually not that many when you think about it, given that Renault have built up a bit of a reputation over the years for not so good electronics, which have maybe spelled the end for some cars that are newer than this. But I think in terms of this car, its lack of electronics and technology in general, overall, I think it's actually saved it. It's helped it to last this long. So I think that's rather good. Right, now we're done talking about the car externally and internally, I think we should go for a little bit of a drive. Welcome viewers aboard the Renault Mégane Classic, where I thought I'd start this particular section of video with a little bit of history on the Renault Mégane. So, it was put into development in the year 1990. This is only a couple of years after the predecessor to this, the Renault 19, was put on sale. Hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea of how long car manufacturers wait from their current model to start developing the next one. When it was in production, the Renault Mégane was known as the X64. Personally, I'm not sure why it's called the X64, although it does sound rather like a Nintendo console. Probably just because they wanted to hide the name and exactly what they were building the car for, exactly which class it was going to go into. The name Mégane was given to it after a 1988 concept Renault developed. They liked the name, so they kept it. That sounds like a good enough reason to me. Underneath the Mégane's lovely exterior, it is basically a Renault 19, albeit with much modification. The floor pan, that's from the 19. The engines, that's from the 19. Transmission, you've guessed it, that's from the Renault 19. It's all just Renault 19 underneath, however, obviously it's been modified for safety. The 19 was very much a car developed in the 80s, and of course moving into the 90s, as it does every year now, or as it does every year still, should I say, safety was obviously improving. And so when the Mégane was launched in 1995 in continental Europe, we in the UK got it in 1996 in April, the Renault Mégane scored a best-in-class score of 4 stars. This was obviously tested in 1998 when Euro NCAP was finally and officially formed, but even so, massively impressive. And of course Renault then continued that trend of being best in class for safety with the Mégane Mark II. As I've just mentioned, the Mégane was put on sale in 1995 to continental Europe, but it was first shown off to the eyes of the world in 1995 in September at the Frankfurt Motor Show. I think it wowed audiences at the time because it was rounded, but it also had that sort of 60s-esque styling, 70s-esque even maybe. I think it turned some heads. Let us now move on to a little bit of information about the specs of this car, the performance as it were. So this particular car is the RN trim. That's the base level, as I've already mentioned in this video. There were 3 trim levels of the Mégane Classic when it was new. They had RN, which is base, RT, which was middle, and RXE, which was top. You had a choice of 3 engines. You had the 1.6, which is what this car's got. You had a 2 litre, which was obviously quite a bit quicker than this. And you also had a 1.9 litre diesel, which, although it was the slowest, it was obviously the most economical overall. Speaking of economy, with the 1.6 I've got under here, you've got an urban fuel consumption rating of about 29 mpg. Extra urban is about, what is it? It's about 48, I think it is, off the top of my head. And combining them both is about 37, which was about average for cars of this time. The engine under the bonnet on this, as I've mentioned, is the 1.6. It produces 90 horsepower at 5,000 RPM. Torque, that's about 140 newton meters. Not quite sure where it kicks in, but it's quite low down the rev range, which makes it quite good for towing things like trailers and caravans. In terms of a 0 to 60, it takes about 11.7 seconds. But remember, this isn't a sporty car, it's just a family saloon. It's not meant to be massively quick, but it's amply enough for the purpose it's going to be doing. However, as I'm about to demonstrate, it's got enough speed to overtake a moped on a country road. In terms of the handling, I've driven cars with quicker steering racks than this, however, it is nice and predictable. You just turn the wheel and it does go exactly where you point it. I know you can say that for pretty much any car in the world, but some cars just do it slightly better than others. because the Mégane was obviously designed for safety and things like that. I mean, it was meant to be just a family car at the end of the day. But you feel safe driving it. You don't feel like it's going to be unpredictable. You don't feel like it's tramlining everywhere. You don't feel like it's going to suddenly spit you out into a hedge. It's rather nice. And of course the suspension on it, because it's a French car, we know the French are very good at suspension. It's very comfy. It's like wafting along on a feather mattress, or if you really want to go that far, it's like riding on Aladdin's carpet. From a young driver's perspective, I will say, if you're looking to buy a sporty car, this is not going to be the car for you. But it is a good little car for practicality, safety, just transporting a lot of people around and a lot of things around. In terms of that brief and that criteria, it fits it rather well. Let's talk for a moment about the price of these cars. It's quite hard to value the Mégane Classic because there's not that many of them left, basically. They weren't massive sellers in the UK in the first place when they were new. Most people tend to buy its scenic stablemate, so these were still quite rare when new, and they're obviously even rarer now. I've had a look on the how many left.co.uk website. Of the Liberté edition Mégane, which this is, there's only 10 of them left on the UK roads now. 10. Obviously I can't show both hands whilst driving, can I? Currently 5 of them are sawn, 5 of them are on the road, so this is only one of 5 Liberté editions left on the road in the UK. In previous months, when having a look just to get an idea in terms of research for this particular video, I've only seen one Mégane Classic for sale. It was in pristine condition. A lot of these cars will not be in pristine condition these days, but this one was, and that was for sale for about £995. On average, going off the costs of things like coupes and hatchbacks of a similar age and mileage, I'd say it's probably going to be about £250, £300 you may be looking. Obviously with rust, expect to pay quite a bit less. This car is a reasonably high mileage car. It's got 157,000 miles on the clock. That may not sound like a massive amount to some people out there who've probably got cars with higher mileage, but it's still quite a high mileage car, especially one that's been used daily for the entirety of its life. Because I forgot to mention it earlier whilst we're having a look around the interior of the car, I will say a couple of things about the interior. Firstly, you've got wind-up windows on this base model. Again, it's very basic. Even the doors don't lock as a whole. You've got to do and undo each one individually. In terms of the interior styling, it's all rather predictable. It's well laid out. There's nothing where you wouldn't expect it to be. So on that front, Patrick Lecumon, who designed this car, he's done a good job. Strangely though, in the back, which is maybe not something you expect to see on a modern car, but again, this car is very much not a modern design by any standards, although I do think it has aged quite well from the front at least. You've got an ashtray in the rear of the car on the rear passenger door. Maybe it's because you could use it to transport a lot of people around in the back. I mean, there's enough space in there, so maybe it's designed for the entrepreneurial type. So to round off the driving section of this video then, the Renault Mégane is predictable, it's spacious, and it's comfortable to drive. What more can you want from a car? Let us go and pull up and just round off this video. So to summarise then, the Renault Mégane Classic, what do we think of it? Well, overall, I may be a bit biased because this is actually my car, but overall, it's a pretty good car. In terms of my ownership experience on this car, it's very rarely ever let me down. And even then, when it has let me down, there have been very minimal issues and it has always got me home, which I think, overall, it speaks a lot for its character. But as a car, objectively, obviously modern cars are going to be better, they're going to be more fuel economical and probably cheaper to tax and things like that. But overall, it's a good car. You get 5 seats and an endless amount of practicality. I think, as a car, it does well. And I think as a potential daily classic for 2021, I think it does even better. I hope you've enjoyed this little review of the car. Please remember to leave a like as it does help the channel out. Comment down below, let me know what you thought of this very first review. I'm sure there'll be mistakes that are in it, but got to start somewhere, haven't we? And of course, if you fancy checking out more videos on the channel, we've got plenty more things coming. Hit that subscribe button, and of course hit the bell notification icon, because it'll let you know every time a new video goes live. Anyway, that's it from me for now, so until the very next video, I shall say farewell.